Hello, welcome back to my aquarium. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 2002 film, The Scooby-Doo movie, directed by Raja Gosnell. And before we begin reviewing the movie, I have a few disclaimers. First of all, I am in no way, shape, or form a movie critique. And second of all, this video will contain a few spoilers regarding the movie, but as the film did come out about 20 years ago, if you're concerned about spoilers, you are a little bit behind. Let's begin. So I chose a few different criteria I would personally like to discuss. I have my little list of notes here. So I'm going to be discussing, the plot, including the conflict, the climax. I'm going to be discussing some of the visuals and special effects. I'm going to be discussing the setting, the acting, some of the jokes, the soundtrack, the basics. I would also like to begin by saying that the movie's budget was $84 million and the box office revenue was $275.7 million. I do feel that this is probably the most famous out of the Scooby-Doo franchise. I know that the comics and the cartoons on television are also very popular, but out of the movies, this is probably the most popular. So first, I'm going to be discussing the conflict and the plot of the movie. So there are a few different plot lines going on throughout the film, which I really do enjoy. Of course, in classic Scooby-Doo fashion, there's a mystery that the gang needs to solve, but this film takes a different turn on this as the movie begins with the gang split up. They're all doing their own thing. Daphne's in the fashion world, Velma's doing her own, whatever Velma does. Shaggy and Scooby are doing their own stoner adventure, whatever they do. So in the beginning of the film, they're all invited to this place called Spooky Island, and they all realize that something's off. People there are acting strange, so they have to work together. The Shaggy and Mary Jane plotline, as Shaggy has a love interest, and that usually does not happen in most of the Scooby-Doo franchise. Another thing I like is Daphne's independence, and although it does become problematic as she's damsel in distress as usual and they all have to save her, I do like the feminist feel to the movie. Another part of the plot that I really do like is the breakup, as I mentioned before. It adds a sense of drama, and it really just brings the feel of friendship and love from the group to the viewer, and I really like that. Another plotline I really enjoy is Velma's crush on Fred. It was hinted throughout the franchise. It was also hinted that Velma was gay, which is a whole separate thing. I do like that Velma has a crush on Fred, and Fred kind of addresses Velma as a person rather than just the brains of the group, and I really like that. Of course, there's also the switching bodies plot in which everyone's mind or soul is kind of put into another's body. It really just adds to character development. So another thing I'd like to discuss is the acting. There are a lot of big names in this film, including, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Linda Cardellini, Matthew Lillard, and none other than Mr. Bean. And these are pretty big actors. They've been in some serious films, because obviously this is one of the less serious ones. And the acting is a little bit dramatic and corny, but yet again, it is a kid's film. Another thing I'd like to discuss are the visuals. The costume design is off the charts. This film took a more mature spin on the previous costumes. The characters kept their original colors. Velma, of course, had her orange on. Daphne with the purple feminine dresses. Fred, of course, with his ascot and white shirt. Here are a couple of my favorite outfits. Of course, Daphne's outfits are the best. I'm obsessed with her dress and the mature take that Warner Brothers took on the outfits. As well as Velma, as we're used to seeing Velma strictly in turtlenecks and a nerdier vibe, but in this movie she kind of comes out of her shell a little bit. I think a lot of that has to do with Fred addressing her as a person, and she gains some confidence. Another thing that I really do like about this film is the setting. The movie was actually filmed in Queensland, Australia, which is a really beautiful place. So there's a lot of real beach footage they use. In addition, there's a lot of castle sets that they put a lot of effort into. There's a lot of different details, including the feast hall. If you haven't seen that, here's a picture of that. A lot of, armor in the armory in the castle. And they actually did film the movie at a real theme park in Queensland, which is really cool. There's, of course, giant roller coasters in the background, which I think adds nice visuals to the film. Another thing I'd like to address are the special effects. This I would give 50-50. It was one of the first films to really use CGI. There's a lot of, ghosts, and of course Scooby-Doo, they did not use a real dog. He is all animated. And I would say they did a pretty good job animating him. Obviously, it's not realistic, but I didn't really notice any errors in that. And I would also like to give some credit to the actors, since Scooby-Doo was animated. They did a pretty good job in the dialogue when they're communicating and interacting with Scooby-Doo. It does appear that they are communicating with a real person, and I did watch some behind the scenes, and they kind of just they were just directed where to look, and they did a pretty good job communicating with him. I couldn't really tell. One of my favorite aspects of this movie is the soundtrack. I do want to mention that there is a Sugar Ray cameo, so there is some Sugar Ray music in that if you're into that sort of thing. The music has a kind of tropical vibe, and the soundtrack actually features many different popular artists, including Outkast, Simple Plan, Shaggy, Solange Knowles, and the entire score was written by David Newman, who did a lot of other big feature films, including Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Ice Age, some other big names. So overall, I'm a really big fan of this movie. Of course, it's a kids' film, and it's not the best when it comes to, storyline, but they did the best they could when it comes to family entertainment. They took a modern spin on the Scooby-Doo idea, as well as sticking with the old feeling of just solving a mystery. So a few highlights I would like to mention, of course, like I previously said, the dark/adult turn on the franchise. There were a few adult jokes throughout the film. I really like that because when it comes to family entertainment, they sneak stuff in, which as a child I did not notice. For example, the whole stoner plot line with Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. In the beginning of the film, it opens up with them in a van, the mystery machine, and there's smoke coming out. Shaggy's love interest is named Mary Jane. There's a hydrocolonic reference or something like that. There's a few times that there's some minor curse words. For example, Fred says biatch, which I thought was kind of funny. Scrappy-Doo actually says scrote. He says you don't have the scrote for this or something like that. Now, I do often joke and say that I would give this movie a 10 out of 10, but when it comes down to all the criteria I listed, I would say that overall the movie is probably about a 7 out of 10, which is relatively high considering it's a children's film. But I think for the time being and the tools they had to create this film, I would say they did a pretty good job. I enjoyed it. I do rewatch it to this day. Many people my age and older enjoy rewatching it, and they did just put it on Netflix if you're interested. Thank you for watching this Scooby-Doo movie review. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.